Welcome back to Season 6 of the Changing Earth podcast with author Sara F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson. Blending survival, fiction, and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hi, welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. Today we have a special episode for you, me and Chin. Hey, Chin, what's up?
Chin's up.
So this is episode number 213, season 6, episode 13. And it's a special episode today because we're doing it on radio scanning or scanning. It's actually Chin's show today. So
Got your ears on good, buddy?
yeah, that's a big 10-4. So very important avenue of communication is what we're researching today. And I'm going to just kind of take the backseat and let Chin take over during our interview. We're honored to have Phil Lichenberger here with us today, and he is the owner of scannerschool.com. So Chin is, you frequent his podcast, right?
Absolutely. Good stuff. Full of good stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get over there. You're just making me realize more and more how much I suck in the communication avenue.
Well, this is you'll find out. Scanners. I mean, Harold will tell you coming up when we get into this chapter. He'll tell you how important it is.
I know, that's his for to take. I write about it all the time. I'm like, I don't know. So I would just watch stuff and learn about stuff and then write it in. So let's go ahead and get into the endless night because I want to spend as much time with Phil as we can. We got a lot of material to cover, and sounds like a couple of the topics that you picked out could be shows in and of themselves. So so we better jump into the story. Let's see. Last week, Swenson took Erica to her new home at the Supreme General's.
How nice.
Yeah, it was nice and cushy, and
all the amenities.
All of it, yeah. It's just like being in prison, here. You get your food 3 times a day.
Food though, right?
Yeah. I wrote that part in. She is dining with the Supreme General. She's going to have some good food, So, but this week we are catching back up with Vince as they continue to search for more information to be able to go and find her and get her out of there. So, let's go ahead and get into chapter 13 of The Endless Night. Chapter 13, the night of September 15th. This is the place, Bennett commented, stopping in front of an urban home a few blocks from the base. Vince looked at the paper again and then to the numbers fashioned on the home. Yep, this is it. Well, don't just stand there, guys. Come on, Penny told them, excitedly bouncing up to the front door. She knocked loudly. Hold on a second, Penny heard a woman's voice from inside the house. She recognized the voice immediately. It was that of her longtime friend, Betsy. Penny tried the knob and the door was unlocked. She stuck her head in. Knock, knock, she said, calling to Betsy in the kitchen. Penny? Oh my God, is that you? Betsy asked. Ta-da, Penny said cheerfully, entering the home. And who do you have with you? Betsy asked, hustling towards them with a dish towel still in her hands. As the crew funneled into the home, Harold and Rob came from a hallway in the back. Greg, Penny, Vince, Harold greeted them with a smile. There were hugs all around. Where's Erica? Harold asked immediately. Vince looked down to the floor and then back up into his eyes. The feds took her, he replied. Harold and Betsy looked to one another without surprise. You already knew, didn't you? What have you heard? Vince asked. We were heartbroken to hear the news. However, we also heard you were dead, and here you are, so you never can tell. Let's talk about Erica in a minute. It's going to be a long conversation, Harold told him. How's Jen? He wondered, turning to Greg and Penny. Jen, Crystal, and Mitchell are fine, Greg responded. A little shook up after the bombing, but all together, they're headed north. What are they doing heading north? Why didn't they come south? Betsy asked. The water is coming, Betsy. You must have heard. The feds are coming for the South first. Northern North Dakota is the new stronghold. We have to make a move to regain the North. It will be better land for maintaining survival if the changes keep happening to the planet, Penny explained fervently. Harold and Betsy's daughter Jen was married to her son Mitchell. Choosing the direction had been a heated debate for the family for many nights. Maybe you should think about coming north with us after we have Erica back, Greg suggested. Vince stood on the outside of the group, irritated with Harold's deflection of his question. Harold, what do you know about Erica? Vince insisted urgently. We're all family here with no secrets. I've been keeping a feed from the federal networks. Yesterday they marched Erica into the Capitol like she was a returning hero, Harold said. Yeah, Mr. Dixon told me that, Vince responded. Tonight, I intercepted a secret message about the Supreme General's wedding, Harold explained. To who? Vince asked. To Erica, Harold told him. What? Vince questioned in horror. He can't do that. She's still my wife. That's not legal. Neither is slavery, but do you see what's happening out there? Plus, they think you're dead, Greg told him. What if she thinks we're all dead? Star wondered. And I've got more bad news for you, Harold replied. Vince was still reeling from the information, unsure he could take any more. They captured Dexter and Johnny in Chattanooga, Oklahoma, Harold told them. Vince sat down on the couch with his face in his hands. Where are they? Greg asked. Radio silence on their location, Harold replied, but I've been scanning constantly. Something is bound to show up. I'll go back and keep listening, Rob volunteered. You want to come, Star? Sure, she replied, eager to find some news. What about the men that took her? Penny wondered. I don't know who brought Erica in, but Dex was captured by a city gate guard, Harold replied. I found a number on one of the men that came to get Erica, Bennett informed him. You saw him? Harold wondered. Erica killed him, and I found him, so yeah, I saw him, Bennett explained. Vince, you got that piece of paper I gave you? Vince sat there staring at nothing, scared to death he was about to lose his family. Dad, Daniel called, trying to gain Vince's attention. Vince still didn't respond. Dad, Daniel called to him, walking over to touch him. Vince jumped at the boy's prodding. Yeah, Daniel, he replied, perturbed. What was the number Bennett gave you? Daniel asked. Vince produced a small piece of paper that was wrapped with a strip of olive material. He broke into tears at the sight of it. Suddenly standing up, he gave Daniel the piece of paper and left out the door. Greg chased after him. Vince, he called. I just need some air. I'll be back, he assured his friend. Greg went back in the house. Everyone turned to look at him, surprised by Vince's irrational actions. He was normally so calm and collected. He just needs some air, Greg assured them. They all understood Vince's reaction and felt sorry for the position he was in. Their friends were in jeopardy, but Vince had lost his soulmate and possibly his eldest son. Here's the number, Harold, Daniel said sadly, handing him the paper. Harold took it from Daniel, stooping down to give the boy a hug. It's going to be okay, Danny. Your dad is strong. He'll find a way to get her back, and I'll do whatever I can to help make that happen, okay? I know, Harold, Daniel replied, trying to appear strong. I found it on a tattoo with a barcode, Bennett told Harold. It's their new tracking system, Harold explained as he stood back up. Not as discreet as the last ones. It connects to the artery in your wrist. You can remove it, but you'll lose your hand. The tracker is under the skin and a barcode is on top for easy refugee transfers. Why are they buying people? Penny asked. They need the labor. They're busy rebuilding after the nuclear accident in Illinois. What do they care if refugees die of radiation poisoning cleaning it up? They need the land, Harold explained. That's sick, Penny commented. It's a regular utopia built on slave labor, Betsy interjected. Now they're destroying the food supplies in the West and the South. With no food, the people keep selling each other to the central region so they can feed their families, Harold continued. The people still love Erica. They believe she stands as a symbol of freedom. The Supreme General is going to take her as a wife to unite the country again. What will they do if they find out Vince is alive? Greg asked. Probably kill him, Bennett responded. Bennett? Daniel declared, upset by the prospect of people coming to kill his father. I'm sorry, Danny. That's what I would do if I was a soldier in that position, Bennett explained, putting an arm around the boy. Unfortunately, it's probably the truth. They have a secret police unit led by Commander Gray that seeks out dissension within the walls, and they employ bounty hunters to capture traitors outside the walls, Harold told them. They'd probably send an assassin. I haven't heard any chatter about that, though. I think no news is good news in this case, Greg interjected. Let's check out this number, buddy, Harold told Daniel. You want to join us? He asked Bennett. You want some cheese and crackers? Betsy asked Penny and Greg. They agreed as Bennett and Daniel followed Harold down the hall and around the corner. They entered an office with a large desk that stretched the entire length of the back wall. Rob and Star sat off to one side with headphones on, in front of multiple monitors and a large radio setup. Harold sat down at another computer at the other end. He opened the paper, looking at the number. Pulling up the search program, he typed the number in. Anthony Gerber appeared on the screen with a picture of a gigantic man. There was a link to his owner. Harold clicked on it. TJ Swenson appeared on the screen. "That's the guy who took my mom?" Daniel asked. "Yeah," Harold said, biting his tongue. Seeing the expressions on their faces, Star took a closer look at the screen. "That guy looks mean," Star said, removing the headphones. "Is that the guy that took her?" "He had to be mean to take your mom, right?" Harold asked them. "Not that mean," Daniel said. He looked into the man's dark, evil eyes. This man does not dance in the colors, Daniel thought, shuddering. "It's okay. We'll find a way to get her back," Bennett assured Daniel, watching his reaction. "At least now we have a name." "Why don't you go get some of those cheese and crackers and see if your dad is back yet?" Harold suggested to Daniel. Bennett went to go with him, but Harold stopped him. "Bennett," Harold said in a quiet voice. He glanced at Star for a moment, making sure she was preoccupied. "TJ Swenson is really bad news. He's the most malicious bounty hunter the Supreme General employs. He never stops until the job is done, and he always gets the job done. He carves his initials into his refugees with a whip, so they will be forever identified as his stock. Even his men are the most ruthless sons of bitches you would ever want to meet," Harold informed him with a fearful look in his eyes. "She killed one of them," Bennett told him. "Who knows how many more went down on the way to the Capitol? I trained her to be strong." "That's just what I'm afraid of. You know Erica, Bennett. You didn't just train her. When we were in Vegas, you tried to break her in the box. How many weeks was she in there?" "Did you ever really succeed?" Harold asked him, looking him in the eye. "Not really," Bennett acquiesced. "She got close enough and I caved." "Exactly. A man like that," he pointed to the creepy picture on the screen, "up against a woman like her?" "We're going as fast as we can," Harold, Bennett assured him. "The first stop was you. Next stop is scouting a way in. We'll just have to pray her training keeps her alive," Bennett said, concerned, "and doesn't earn her too much abuse. She's always found a way to survive before. I just hope she can this time. With the news of the marriage, all we can do is hope she's not in Swenson's hands. Who knows where they're keeping her? But I can guarantee it's in a box where she can't escape, or she would have already," Bennett speculated. "True," Harold agreed. Star looked consumed with the chatter in her headphones, but she listened carefully to every word they said. Thinking of the abuse Erica might be enduring, Star's mind couldn't help but think back to the horrible nightmares involving the day her mother died. The burly man with the beard and mustache grinding her mother into the ground. Her screams and his grunting filled her ears. His endless torture while her mother tried desperately to protect her child. Star remembered cowering in the bushes, but Erica saved her. She lost her mother but gained a guardian that would have protected her until her last breath. She looked at the picture on the screen. "Taken by him," she fumed. "Do you want to tell Vince about this?" Harold asked him. Bennett looked at Star absent-mindedly. She was still listening carefully to the headphones. "We have to." "I'll do it," Bennett told him. The men left, and Star couldn't hold back her tears any longer. Her mind swirled with memories of lost loved ones and inescapable nightmares. Rob noticed the teardrops slowly creeping down her soft skin. "Star, are you all right?" Rob asked, holding one of the earmuffs off his ear. He looked at her for a moment while she tried to answer. "What am I saying?" he asked, taking the headphones off and placing them on the desk. "Of course you're not all right." He hugged her tightly, wrapping his large teddy bear arms around her. Bennett and Harold went back to the sitting room, joining Greg, Daniel, and a plate of cheese and crackers. Penny and Betsy migrated to the kitchen to quietly discuss female topics. "Daniel told me the guy looks mean. What was his name?" Greg asked for clarification from the adults. Before he could answer, the door opened and Vince walked in. Bennett jumped up immediately. "Walk with me, Vince," Bennett said, taking him back out the door. Bennett relayed the information of Vince while Harold informed Greg. Daniel listened as his father raged in the street. Vince got so loud the women in the kitchen stopped talking and looked to Harold and Greg. "He has to work it out," Greg consoled them. "I couldn't imagine reacting any other way if I was in that position." They all took a moment of personal reflection. Vince's anger-fueled tantrum quieted, and Bennett provided comfort as he cried on the stoop. Right, news of Erica's whereabouts kind of hits Vince a little hard with Supreme General's plans that he's got laid out.
What? She's what? She's getting married.
What? To who? What the hell? Yeah.
What kind of gift do you buy your wife when she's getting married?
Yeah. So, yeah, and then it's kind of the catch-22 because, law abiding and like morally, if they knew he was alive, then it wouldn't be happening. But if they knew he was alive, then they'd be sending people out to kill him. So what do you kind of do in that situation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rough. And this is my my ode to the cheese and crackers, I love my cheese and crackers. And like post-apocalyptic type, are you ever going to have cheese and crackers again? I don't know.
You can have cheese.
You can have cheese.
Well, you can make crackers
You
too.
can make crackers, yeah, for sure. But not like,
You're going to have a cheese and cracker stand on the side of the road. Sell it to all the people walking through the apocalypse.
I'm like, I want cheese and crackers.
Cheese and cracker stand.
Yeah, and then this we let I brought the viewers a little bit into Star's emotional struggle at this point as well. I tried to bring that into this chapter.
I believe that part too. She was multitasking with the earphones and listening. Come on.
Yep. Yeah.
I can't do that. I got one conversation and the other. I can't keep two conversations going.
That's because you're not a woman.
I know.
We could have like 4 conversations at once. Like, oh, hold on a second. Uh-huh. No.
That, and they got the CTJ, right? Then they pull them up on the screen.
Yep. They identified that it was TJ. And then Harold has the conversation with Bennett about, you put her in the box and you tried to break Erica. How'd that go?
Worked out.
Yeah. So you got this dude and her. I mean, how do you think that picture's looking? So Bennett's like, oh, crap.
Mm-hmm.
Erica.
Yep.
She's always getting herself in trouble.
Yep.
Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and welcome Phil to the show because I'm excited to get into this interview. So a little bit about Phil. He has a website. It's called Scanner School, where you can go and learn more than you probably ever wanted to know
about like copiers and scanners and stuff, right? How to make duplicates and paperwork.
Sitting on the copy machine.
Raw topic.
Wrong one. Yeah. So he's been doing this before he could walk. Basically, growing up, his early memories included watching the red lights dance on his grandparents' old Bearcat 101 in the kitchen. I remember those kind of things. We had like CBs out on the boat. My grandpa was way into that kind of stuff too. So he says that the sounds of police and fire tones would make their way into the living room as they played on the floor. So this is what he grew up doing. And now he's just, taken this passion and he loves to teach it to you, which is why he agreed to come on the show. His Scanner School is a collection of tutorials that are quick and easy to digest, from entry level to advanced scanning techniques. He covers it all. So I highly recommend you get over there and check it out. He releases weekly classes via audio tutorials, also known as podcasts. So he's doing his own show. That's how Ching, you got hooked up with them,
Brian.
Through a different program. From Brian? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So if you'd like to get a hold of Phil and learn more information, go over to www.scannerschool.com. That's www.scannerschool.com. So let's go ahead and welcome Phil to the show. Welcome, Phil. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're all about?
Sure. I am Phil Lichtenberger. I have an amateur radio call sign. It's W2LIE. And for those of you who perk your ears up for hearing LIE, yeah, it's a reference to Long Island and the Long Island Expressway. It's definitely a vanity call. Been licensed since about 1992-ish, I believe it is. Lost track after all these years. But right now, currently, I'm working on a podcast called Scanner School. We release session 86 this coming Tuesday. So we've been around a little bit more than a year and have a weekly episode. And Scanner School is really around to teach people all about the scanner radio hobby, basically from introduction or beginner topics to some more advanced topics. I try and keep things flowing, little mini series and those kinds of deals. So, that's kind of what I've been doing lately, and that's kind of think why I'm here.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I am going to pretty much hand the reins of this show on over to Chin because he's just got more knowledge on this topic than I do. So when I got questions, I'm going to pipe up. But
and that's why I brought Phil on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's got way more knowledge than I do. Yeah. So, I mean, this whole scanner thing, I've been toying with it and playing with it back and forth. And I bought a little handheld one and I play with it online. But listening to your podcast, it's like, wow, the things that we could do is. So I thought definitely after this chapter that we went through and hearing Harold talk about, gathering information over the radio and on the computer and stuff to help his people, his little group of people, Phil was the guy to bring on board and talk about how we can use scanners to just collect information.
Right. And in fact, it's a funny story you bring it up, Chin, because you and I actually did the exact same thing, right? Yeah. With the Cajun Navy.
Navy, yeah.
Yep. So you kind of reached out to me a couple months back. There was a tropical storm, I think, rolled through the area. Was that a lot of flooding
in North Carolina that we were tracking?
Exactly. And you reached out to me, and you and I kind of worked together, and we pooled some resources together via social media. And we're asking for volunteers to listen to their scanner radios and kind of funnel information directly into you and your chapter of the Cajun Navy in order to help out. So it's exactly what you just talked about. Several listeners listen to the radio, listening to local public safety and emergency management, as well as other amateur radio, and funneling those channels that they hear from the scanner directly to a central point to help with rescue efforts and all those other things. So I think it kind of is a really interesting, practical topic to talk about this.
Yeah, because information is key, right? If there's something going on, like if there's a riot or if there's a bad weather coming in, and you might not be able to turn the TV on, but if a hurricane. I remember talking one time, I was listening to an ice storm come across South Carolina, and I can listen to it on my ham radio, but it was interesting through the repeater system to be able to listen. There's a storm come further and further to the East Coast.
Right.
So how do you get a setup going that would be efficient for you to start now, because you don't want to just be worried about it then? Well, what's like the bare minimum gear that you would recommend somebody has to get started?
Right. So that's exactly what I was going to get into too, is when you said, start now. So what I always say to somebody when they have a scanner radio is don't buy a scanner radio and then wait till the last second to learn how to use it, because by then it's too late, right? You want to be comfortable with using it, because some scanner radios are really involved with how they operate, not to scare anybody away, but just to be practical here. So there's a lot that you can buy very simple ones, but they may not work in your area. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. So you may need some of the more advanced ones. Some things to look out for basically is, do you have conventional frequencies in use, which is basically point-to-point operations or repeater systems. That's really the more common type of thing. So if you think about GMRS radios and ham radios, public safeties can use a lot of the same type of communications to do that. Really, a repeater system is all the main users, and they're repeated through a tower site, so you have a larger geographical footprint. Gotcha. From there, you have trunking systems. And these trunking systems can be a little elaborate to put into a scanner radio. So if you don't know how to set one up, you're going to need the time to learn how to do this, or you're going to have to pay to have a company do it for you. And by doing so, again, it's not, you basically, with trunking works, and the way I kind of explain it is, you are sharing a limited number of resources over a large number of users. and you hop around all the different frequencies. And again, this is a really high level view of how trunking works. And we can talk more about it if you want, but I cover all this type of stuff in my podcast in great detail. And from the trunking systems, you have multiple different types of flavors of trunking. So you can have like EDAX trunking, you can have Motorola Type 2 trunking, you can have digital trunking systems like P25, you can have DMR and XDN. So you really need to know what is in your own backyard as to what it is you want to listen to. So having this information beforehand then dictates what type of scanner radio it is that you need to buy. So if we take my own backyard, for example, I live on Long Island. I can listen off of a cheap radio, even a $25 Chinese radio like a Baofeng or a TYT, which I definitely don't recommend at all. But an entry-level scanner radio, something that's about the $100 price point, I can listen to my local fire departments, I can listen to my neighboring county fire departments, and I can listen to NYPD, FDNY, amateur radio, CB, GMRS, FRS, the weather band, all from a cheap radio.
Wow.
Now, if I want to listen to my next county over, they're on a trunk system. So I need to make sure that I can listen to I have a scanner that operates on trunking. Now they're rolling over to a P25 system, so I need to buy a radio that's going to handle P25. Now on top of that, they're also using simulcast. So I need a radio that's going to operate in simulcast. So I went from having a $100 radio now to having a $600 radio really fast, depending on what it is I want to listen to. Now in my own county, if I want to listen to the police, I need to know that they're encrypted. And because they're encrypted, there's no way at all, absolutely no way to listen to them. So they're off the table. So again, a little bit of research can go a very long way on deciding what type of scanner radio you have to buy. Now, as far as answering the question too, as to what is the best radio and what you need to get started with, I know I'm being a little bit long-winded with this answer here, is you also want to figure out, do you want portable? Do you want a desktop or mobile radio? So I think for the prepping environment, I think a handheld radio is probably the best because you can take it with you. Is you throw it in a bug out bag, right? And it operates on batteries. As long as your batteries are charged or you have spare batteries, you're good to go. If you're working in an environment where you have a desktop and you have a couple people listening, then maybe a desktop radio that operates on 12 volts is the way to go. So again, it kind of all. Yep, go ahead.
Can you hook up like an external antenna to a handheld to help increase your range?
Yes. So that's the other thing too. So now you have to figure out too, again, with an external antenna, is most external antennas come with a little bit of coax. So again, I'm talking external antennas like mobile mounted antenna, right? Anything can get you outside the car will help you out. If you have something on top of the house, right? Don't forget if you're coming through a windstorm and maybe blown to smithereens too, so you got to keep that in mind. But good quality coax like LMR 400 isn't cheap, but it's the best bang for the buck. And you want to be able to plug that into the top of your scanner. Now, again, LMR 400 is going to have a N type of connector on it. So now, again, planning ahead, you're going to realize that you have an N connector on the coax, but you have a, depending on the radio you buy, a BNC or an SMA. Now, again, I cover a lot of this stuff in my own podcast, and I'm brushing over it really quick here. I'm being realistic. I'm not trying to scare anybody away. I'm trying to promote doing your homework.
Yep. Right.
And you would need to know, again, BNC or SMA. Obviously, you need to know the differences between the two, where to get the jumpers for them if you needed them, and all this stuff. But for the most part, get involved with just a handheld radio with an aftermarket handheld radio antenna can be enough just to get you off the ground and operating almost immediately. So you can go very simple or you can get very elaborate with it.
Does your geographical area literally dictate like what you need if you're, living near the city? Or I live out in the mountains where it's like, it's even difficult sometimes to grab a cell phone signal, so is that that's going to dictate your systems?
Completely, absolutely. So a lot of RF is line of sight. So it's not visual sight, it's RF path line of sight. So if you live in an area that's got a lot of transmitters, like a lot of trunking systems are built out with a lot of transmitters, and you may find out that because it's set up that way that you can operate just fine with a handheld radio. But Sarah, in your environment, right, we have a lot of mountains and a lot of terrain issues. You're definitely going to want to have an outdoor antenna, and you definitely want to have it up as high as possible. Now, again, surviving a storm type of thing, if you have a hurricane that blows through, this may involve having something like a temporary telescoping mast that you can put up and guy wire up so that you have something that's available to you. Or if your house happens to survive, because I know what's happens a lot over here too is the antennas they just blow apart when the winds get to be too much or too great. So again, a lot of variables in here, but for the general use, keeping your antenna as high as possible is the best solution. Good quality coax, and again, I definitely would promote putting something external to your house or your vehicle, depending on how you're doing it, is the best way to go.
Are there issues with scanners and running mobile in your
Depends
car?
where you live.
Yeah.
It all depends where you live. Like where I live in New York State, it's against the VTL to have a scanner radio in your car. Now, again, there's two schools on this. There's certain people read the law one way and certain people read the law the other way. So I'm not here to debate which way the law is written. I'm only here to say that according to the way that I read it, I wouldn't put a scanner radio in a vehicle in New York State.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to have that conversation before
Yes.
somebody gets in trouble.
Yep. And again, I actually have, if you don't mind me plugging it early, I have a document or a download that people can grab. And in that doc, I kind of pull out different things to look out for when buying a scanner radio. So I call it the 5 things to know before buying your first or your next scanner radio. And I'll give a link to that at the end of this interview. So I do cover a lot of this stuff too in like a 30-page document. So if it sounds like I'm going a little bit fast here, I kind of slow it all down for that.
No, I mean, I purchased a Bearcat, but just a little handheld one. And holy smoke, it's a lot just to figure out how to get that thing to work. I mean, having a resource like yours, or do you work with some stores that would help do this? Do you have a store?
Yeah, so I don't actually have a store. I mean, I do a lot of the stuff on the podcast. I do a lot of affiliate marketing, so that's why I don't operate a store. Scanner Master is probably the biggest
that's the one.
shop out there, and it's one of the places I affiliate with. So I point a lot of traffic over there personally, and they do sell the scanners. They also have the ability to program your scanner for you. So you can pay them to just dump your entire county into the scanner. If you have any questions too about if this is the right scanner for you, they will be able to answer that type of question as well.
You get a whole resource page on your Scanner School website.
Yes, I do.
So yeah, because I mean, somebody just getting into it. If you don't have the deep burning love for all this radio tech stuff, that might be the way to go. And steer clear of Amazon and kind of save a lot of time and anguish, and just get a system set up.
Yeah, to actually be useful then, because
and then to use it because like somebody like me and Sarah, I mean, it's fun to listen in, but it's a tool, not as much a toy. And like during hurricane season, or Sarah's got wildfires, just to know what's going on, it might help.
Right. And I mean, don't forget too, sometimes too, scanner radios can be a Swiss Army knife as well. So you have the ability to take most scanners that are off the shelf and convert them very easily into NOAA weather alert radios just by putting them into NOAA weather standby mode. So it can operate as a weather alert radio as well. If you know how to set it up correctly, you can use what's called fire tone out mode, whereas if it listens to the local fire department, when the tones come over, and again, you have to do some pre-program this one, but it'll operate as a fire pager as well. So you don't have to listen to everything going on the county fire dispatch channel, but when something happens in your local fire department, the radio can alert that way as well. Cool. So besides just being a scanner, and listening to everything on the sun, maybe we should talk about that, like how you can kind of set a scanner up and get it optimized for your immediate area. I think we should definitely touch on that on this, because I think at this point right now, I've kind of scared a lot of people off.
Because
how realistic it can be.
Well, one of my thoughts too is like in a grid down situation, you're going to have, if we literally didn't have the communications that we have right now, we didn't have our cell phones recharging and things like that. You're going to have people using CB radios and those, not just CB, but walkie-talkies and stuff like that to be able to communicate just over those short distances. And if you had a device where you could tell that somebody was headed your way before they were on your doorstep, that would be probably a really good thing to learn now instead
Right.
of.
So most communications would probably happen. I mean, CB and FRS, a family radio system, at least here in the United States, right? 'Cause you have to remember too, what we could be talking globally here, right? With our listeners. So CB and FRS is probably good for real short point to point. Although CB, depending where you live, the bands for CB changes. GMRS, or General Mobile Radio Services, is a paid license system up here, at least in the United States. And they have very limited number of repeaters, but some repeaters are set up for what they call React. Here on Long Island, there's a group that's called BTG, or Bridging the Gap. And they are a community type of gatherers, I guess, to gather information to help out public safety and to, help coordinate with public safety, kind of be another extension of OEM and those kinds of things. On the amateur radio side, that's where you're going to find most of the activity. So you're going to have groups like ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Services. You're going to have RACES, which is the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Services. I hope I got that one right, because I used to be the deputy chief radio operating officer for them. I used to be the PIO too for the Nassau County areas here on Long Island. And then you're going to have like National Traffic System. You're going to have them communicating with the local OEMs, with the local fire departments, kind of as an extension. They do a lot of work with the Red Cross and manning shelters. So basically, if you want to know what's going on, at least in the emergency in your local area, and just find out what's kind of the traffic is being passed along, amateur radio is really going to be what you're going to listen to. Now, you're going to want to go online. You're going to find out what the local ARES, RACES, CERT type of thing is in your local area. Now, again, CERT would be the Community Emergency
Response teams.
Response team, right? Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, good. At least you really helped with that one. But yeah, so CERT, like in my area, CERT's on the local trunk system. So you kind of have to know where everybody kind of is located. The local OEM is on the trunk system. So things could be all over the place when it comes to knowing where things are. Again, I want to backtrack a little bit too, because we talked about learning how to use the radio and stuff that's out there. So besides having my podcast, I'm actually in the process right now too of putting together some training classes. Don't have anything really set up right now for that. It's kind of long term, but I do plan on having courses on how to go through each of the radios that are out there. So it will be geared to the user who has never used a scanner, or somebody who has that type of model and wants to refresh themselves on it as well. And it will be a soup to nuts how to use the radio. And also will be, classes on how to get into the hobby and everything else. So if this is definitely too quick and too much, I will have additional resources besides what's on my resources page to get up to speed on how to use a scanner radio.
And you said that one company will actually download like what's in your area to that radio already, and then you can just buy it like all ready to go as well.
Yeah, so there's different types of radios out there. One of the biggest websites, probably the biggest website in the world, is called Radio Reference. It's a really good resource for knowing what frequencies are in use. So Radio Reference has a community, a website forum community that's huge. That'd be like the first resource I'd point anybody to.
Okay.
Also on there, they have the frequency database. Now, in that database, you can dig down to your country, then to your state or province, then to your county or parish, right, depending where you are, and then actually down to the city level. And then from there, you find out what frequencies are in use. You find out what trunk systems are used. And I go through this on one of my podcasts. It'll be session number 83, basically how to navigate the Radio Reference website and find out what you need to know in order to pick a scanner for your area. Now, using this information that's on Radio Reference, a shop like Scanner Master will take that data and they can load it into your scanner for you. So you get the scanner and it's turnkey. Another resource out there is Uniden makes what they call the Home Patrol. Now, the Home Patrol takes the Radio Reference database and it puts it into their software. I believe it's every Monday night. And from there, you can program your radio up by just popping in your zip code, and your radio will auto program itself, whatever services you want. And from there, you're off and running to the races. Now, Whistler makes their product line too. It's something that works on Easy Scan, which is their software. And from there, you would use the TRX1 or the TRX2 as the software. But the Home Patrol platform originally was made for somebody that just needed a scanner and wanted to pop their zip code in and just have it go. Since then, the Home Patrol has grown into several different flavors of scanners, and they are now like a hybrid. So you can really program it yourself and make your own lists up, or you can kind of dumb it down and go with what's in the database. So again, a shop like Scanner Master would be able to take no matter what radio you buy, even if it's one of the Home Patrol models, and they can then program the scanner to your local area.
Yeah, that would be a big help.
Would definitely be.
It's kind of like
now again, what's that?
It kind of like Chirp does for the ham radio, where you can program your radio with the Chirp software.
Yeah, but a little bit more advanced than that, to be honest with you. A lot of the off-the-shelf type of scanner radio software will allow you to import from radio references, say import from radio reference or repeater book, or that type of stuff as well. So even if you don't have a Home Patrol version and you want to kind of do this yourself, if you have a subscription to radio reference, you can use software like from Butel, ProScan, or FreeScan and pull the data off and program the scanner that way as well. And I kind of do that a lot as well. But for somebody who just doesn't know what they're doing and would rather just get something turnkey and not mess with software, a service like Scanner Master is really a lifesaver and a godsend, really. Something I remember too.
Start, and then you can learn how to do it yourself later.
Exactly. But you also remember too that not everything is going to stay the same either. I mean, you can have a system that can change tomorrow. So that's why, again, too, it's good to know and good to keep practice on it and, keep honing your skills when it comes to scanning, and not just say, okay, it works and put it back in the box. And then, 4 years down the road, you go to turn it on, you can't hear anything. And then you scratch your head going, well, there's a storm barreling down. It's going to be here in 24 hours. Why can't I hear anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So do you want me to go through to like how I would set up a scanner radio for somebody so that they can kind of get the best? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So normally what I do when I program up a scanner radio is what we have banks or scan lists, depending on the flavor of scanner you're talking about. So just to keep things simple here, we're going to talk banks. Banks are a group of frequencies that you put together that kind of relate to each other. So I would say like, say NYPD, for example. I would put everything NYPD into a bank. I would put everything FDNY into a bank, just so we could talk just something here, right? So your local PD, your local FD. Maybe you do a neighboring county PD, neighboring county FD, your own OEM frequency, maybe a list of amateur radio frequencies. And each, I would break them down into banks. So this way, if I was only worried about what's happening in my own backyard and only want to listen to amateur radio, I can lock out all the other banks. It essentially locks out all the frequencies I'm not interested in listening to. And I'd be able to listen to just, say, the amateur radio stuff. Likewise, if I want to listen to amateur radio and FD, I can then turn both those banks on and the scanner would go through both of those banks. So it's a real simple and easy way to keep yourself organized. I know a lot of people may just decide that they're going to put everything in there and they just dump everything into one bank. And that's when you have just too much to listen to. And then you're just like, I can't figure out what's going on here. So
it's jumping all over the place. And you're listening to a fire and then a cop and then another fire.
And then the other thing too is, right. And if you have too much going on in the scanner, what ends up happening is the scanner ends up, listening to too many conversations, right? It goes from conversation A to B to C to D to E to F. And it takes it long enough to go back that maybe you missed something on A. Maybe they say we need help. And then all of a sudden you don't hear that help is responding because the scanner had moved on. So sometimes too, keeping the bank short and sweet, keeping your scan list short and sweet, is where you want to be.
Yeah, that makes much more sense. Categorizing is always better.
Yes.
To be able to just go, no, you don't want those ones, or you can pop them all up and listen to them all, or you don't. I like that idea much better. It just makes it clear and concise. And then you're going to know what you're listening to by what bank you're on as well.
Right. And a lot of scanners too, they also alpha tag, which means basically the definition of that frequency or that talk group physically displays on the screen. So you don't need to worry about, say 154.34 is, Rescue Company XYZ. It'll actually say on the screen, Rescue Company XYZ. So you know exactly what it is you're listening.
Like our car stereos are doing now, where it
pretty much
some of the data, the name of the radio station, not just the frequency.
Right. And the, a lot of the scanners are limited to like 16 characters in there. The Home Patrols, though, I think it's like 25 characters. So there's a lot more information that can go up on that screen on the Home Patrol. So
very cool. Interesting. Yeah, man, it's just a ton of information. And,
Yeah.
it's just so much to get into and learn. It's another language from, we get into like, what do you need for disaster emergency? And there's all these different languages that we need to learn. And this is definitely one of those areas.
And that's a good point too. Languages you need to learn because a lot of departments too will actually use their own 10 codes or their own signals, their own codes. So, you might hear, for example, in my local county, when the fire department says signal 10, that's a working house fire. But if the police department says signal 10, that means phone headquarters. If my county says signal 13, that means calls over, return to base. My next county, 13, is a working fire. So you have to know exactly where it is too. So that's why sometimes too, having a little cheat sheet or a book open that has all the, the codes and all that stuff can help. And even too, some departments might have their own codes. Like there's some department will use like a 91 to be a member of service for their department because they are 910. So, you kind of have to know, what's going on. So just because it's the county doesn't mean that the same codes could be used everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
So, yeah.
Is there good reference databases for that?
It depends. There is a national type of database where a lot of departments are trying to get over to using, I think it's NIMS, or I don't know, that's probably not right, but my neighboring county is trying to use that, to standardize that. That's used for a lot of EMS calls. I'll see like a something Delta, whatever. And of course, then you have to have that entire thing memorized. Like, it's a 39 Delta 2 response. Well, what the heck does that mean? A lot of departments are promoting plain language, which is a beautiful thing, but nobody wants to use that. So to answer that question, like I have my own local scanner radio hobby website. So on my website, I have a working list of all the numbers, and I've spent years grooming through it and adding anything that's not on the standard list. So pretty much my website is like at this point the de facto location for my county, my neighboring county, to get the 10 codes and all those. So,
resources like that would be good to find. Resources like that would be good to start searching for now for our local areas, so we can understand what's going on.
And again, too, Radio Reference may have a great resource too, because on top of having a user forum and on top of having a database, they also have a wiki page, and the wiki page may have something limited to the county as well. So, like again, Radio Reference has a lot of stuff on there too. That's if you can find your way through their website, which is pretty easy to do, you may find exactly what you're looking for over there too.
I'm buried in info, so you got to just start leading me through it because my brain's like chugga. Yeah.
All right. So let's start, let's just pretend you don't have a scanner, right? So I don't know where most people are.
I don't.
Okay. So if you want to get started to scanning right now, all right.
Good job pretending.
I know. I'm an author.
There's a great way to get into it right now without having the need of any equipment. There's online resources, and I'll give you two examples here in a second, where you can listen to what's going on in your own backyard over your computer or your smartphone. We talked about Radio Reference, and Radio Reference actually a couple of years ago bought out a website called Scan America. And Scan America had a lot of online scanners, and the point of Scan America was to kind of be the central hub for scanners located all over the United States and beyond. Personally, on my own website, I have a bunch of scanner radios that are online. People can listen to using their computer, and I have it broken down. Like I have scan banks. I also have smaller radios, put around the county where you can just listen to just a particular battalion or just a smaller area of what's going on, just even to one firehouse or fire district. So if you wanted to go online, now Scan America is now been bought out by Radio Reference, and they've renamed it Broadcastify. Broadcastify has a very similar feel to Radio Reference. They're tied together. So if you buy a premium membership at Radio Reference, I believe it also carries over to Broadcastify. Just like Radio Reference going through the database, when you go into Broadcastify, you could dig down to your country, you dig down to your state or province, your county, parish, depending where you are. And I have to get to the habit of saying it this way because I leave people out if I don't, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And then you can go down to basically your area. So if I went down to my neck of the woods here, I'd find New York, right? United States, New York. Then I'd find Nassau County. And under Nassau County, I would find my own feeds here, which would be for Nassau County Fire. And I'd find a bunch of other feeds that other people are resourcing out to Broadcastify. So you can listen to that on your computer. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, you can download a bunch of different softwares. The one that I use is called Scanner Radio Deluxe, and it comes in a paid or a free version. I think the paid version just allows you to get rid of the advertisements that's on it. And same deal. You go down to your state, you go down to the county, and then you can pick from Broadcastify feeds and listen to those feeds on your smartphone. There's other ways you can do it too. There's, how many ways can you skin a cat type of thing. So there's other resources out there that will allow you to monitor what's going on. But if you want to start right now after listening to this podcast, you can do so very easily by going to Broadcastify or downloading Scanner Radio Deluxe on your portable device and listening that way.
Very cool. Yeah, that's what I think of where I'll start. Like, okay.
Yeah, and it's a good idea too to listen to it and to be able to hear what's in your area, to kind of get a feel for the transmissions you might be listening to, get an understanding for the pattern or the tempo that happens. Because listening to fire and listening to police is a lot different than listening to aviation. I mean, it's a completely different lingo and a completely different pattern when it comes to the way that information is processed across. So
that's another thing. You can listen to aviation. You can listen to train. I mean, listen to all kinds of different.
You can listen to one thing I used to like to listen to is the traffic copters, because you can listen to them in the morning. So before they actually do their broadcast, you'll hear them. You'll find out one helicopter does multiple stations, and you'll just hear them change. Oh, this is shadow traffic. This is metro traffic. This is and it's the same helicopter. There's even they'll even share information back and forth with each other. You can get the IFBs or the which is basically the director talking to the field units. So you can get a lot of information too just by listening to a lot of the media channels. So there's a lot more than just listening to public safety you can listen to when it comes to a Scanner Radio.
Yep. So you were talking about being able to use like Broadcastify, or there's a couple other that you can listen, but you can listen to a different area if you wanted to practice and get a feel, like tempo, like you said. You could I was on a Broadcastify waiting for Sara to come in earlier this afternoon, and I looked up the most popular site, and it was Chicago.
Of course, yeah. So Chicago's been number one for years and years. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But it would be a good way to practice.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. Like when something's going down in a different area, go ahead and jump on there and try to pretend like you're there. That's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah. So what you can do is exactly right. You can listen to what's going on in that immediate area. You can actually use it to track the storm. Basically, we simply stated too here, like in my own county, we could track a thunderstorm very easily just by hearing what fire departments are being dispatched out. And, you just hear one department at the next department. As the storm travels east, you can tell what the storm is based on who's getting toned out. Likewise, you can tell just how bad something's going on by what you're listening to on a scanner feed for a particular state. Granted, a lot of the stuff you'll hear after the fact, I think a lot of what you're going to hear as far as emergency goes will be the amateur radio, because they're the ones communicating with Red Cross and to the OEM and those kinds of things as well. So, but again, you're also limited too as to what's actually being broadcast. Like if nobody sets something up, you're not going to hear anything. Or if that person who's sourcing the feed loses power, that feed's going to go down. So
that's why you can't depend on it. You were talking in the last segment we did about how we got together and helped out with the Cajun Navy, and they were losing some of the feeds online, and we were trying to source local people to ham radio in and chain it out to find out what was going on. So I wouldn't depend on having these software that either on your phone or to carry you through a bad emergency. But it's a good way to practice, and during good times, it's a way to get information.
Right. And now to kind of go off a little bit here, but to bring it back to Scanner Radio, one of the other apps too that a lot of people use is called Zello. Zello being a push to talk type of app where you can have multiple people talking. I'm sure, Chin, you've used that quite a bit with what you do, especially with the Cajun Navy.
Yeah.
But there's, search and rescue groups that use it, or they can be patched in from a two-way network. Now, I remember when a hurricane rolled through Florida many years ago, there was actually a search and rescue group that was on Zello, and allowed me, from New York, to listen in and hear some of the rescue efforts from being on the outside. Now, again, we wouldn't be able to talk on there because of the way the group was set up, but you could hear the local operations based on the Zello group. I've talked with people who use Zello to communicate with family members who are in other countries during an emergency, and Zello will actually queue your message. So if you record on your phone, don't worry, we're fine. It will actually store it until you get into an environment where you have cell coverage again or Wi-Fi, and then it will send out the message for you. So you're not always looking to use it. And again, I'm told that's the way it works. I haven't actually used it in that fashion. So again, people will broadcast their scanner radio feeds over Zello, and Zello kind of gives you that real-time feel as well. So, that's another tool to have in your pocket when it comes to a smartphone and a scanner radio.
And that's a smartphone app that does that?
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yep.
Cool. All right.
What was those old phones where they had the push to talk on the phone?
Nextels.
Nextels, yeah. It works a lot like the Nextel phones were.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
A lot more reliable, though.
It feels like it. Yeah, that's how it feels when you're using it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that work over cellular?
Well, it depends. It grabs a data channel. So if you're on Wi-Fi, it'll grab Wi-Fi, and if you don't have Wi-Fi, it'll go on cellular.
I wonder how that works, because I know, like in an emergency, you always like a text goes through better than trying to make a phone call.
So here's my disclaimer. I work for a phone company. I work for a cell phone company. So we'll leave it at that. So yeah. So the reason why a text message goes out, because it uses a different path to get there to keep it simple. So when you have to make a phone call, right, the phone call actually has to create the establishment. It's got to make the sync. It's got to, get the voice channel bearer up and running. And it does require a little bit better signal to get all that up and running. If you don't make the quality thresholds, you're not going to get it. Or if there's blocking, God forbid there's blocking, right? That happened on 9/11, especially locally here. Everybody's trying to make a phone call. On top of that, a lot of cell sites are going down. So you have that limited resources there. But a text message, that's instant. That's not instant. That's low traffic, I guess you could say, right? Because it's very quick. It's a data packet. So it's like, here's the message, boom, and out. So as long as you can get that barrier to establish really quick, that text message goes out. Alternately, though, text messages can get queued up. They can bottleneck, and it could take you some time, too, to get a message delivered. So it might be a little bit more reliable and easier, but it's, that's why, like, using an app like iMessage or Zello, can help you out, because if you can fall back to, a Wi-Fi network, that message can then use that channel to get as well. But again, it's again being prepared. Right now, you have cellular and you have a Wi-Fi to get that information out there.
Right,
so,
more than one route.
Nice derailment we had right
there. Yeah, I know, squirrel.
That is okay. How about doing the recording the information so you can review it later?
Yep. So I love recording audio. It's just one of those things that I've set up over here years and years ago. Broadcastify also does offer recording. So if you're a premium member to Real Reference and you get Broadcastify, you can go back in time and play back some audio. Now, I don't know how far back it goes, but they do make it very easy to do. On my website, I do the exact same thing. I have recorded audio that's available to people to download, and I save that in 30-minute chunks. But I also keep it locally here on my computer. So there's different types of software out there. I think, there's different ways, again, to get the same thing done. So FreeScan allows you to do it, and as the title says, it's a free piece of software. Will allow you to plug into your scanner. If you have an audio cable off the back of the scanner, you plug it into the line or the microphone input on your laptop or computer. You may also need to have a serial cable or USB cable from the radio to the computer, depending how fancy you want to get with this, and it will allow you to log and record. So when you actually have it set up with the data connection between your computer and the scanner, it allows you to then save the file name with the actual frequency, the actual name, the way you have it saved in the radio. So you might find, like, for example, where I am, it would actually say date, time. So I use wildcards, my file name, and then it will say, 453.4125 North Massapequa Dispatch. That's the town where I live in. And it's recorded and archived in that manner. And every time they transmit, boom, I get a brand new file name. So I can quickly go through my files and play them back and find out what happened. Tweak it out that way. So you can use programs like FreeScan. You can use Butel software will do that. But I use ProScan to do all my audio recording and my streaming. And what I like too about ProScan, it's a $50 piece of software. And I have a radio going on in the background right now as we speak too. I thought I muted it, so hopefully it's not coming through. So what happens with ProScan too is not only can I wildcard the file name, but I can also wildcard the directory structure as well. So I can then say it's the name of the feed, and then it's the year as a wildcard, the month, and the day as a wildcard. Each has its own directory. So now I have all my 2019 calls grouped together, all my August calls grouped together, all the calls for today grouped together. And then within that folder are all the audio files that happened today. And I can go back any day quickly at any time and find the exact file I'm looking for. And if I want to go back to just anything in August, I can go in the Windows Explorer and type in, say Freeport, for example. And every recording for the entire month that had Freeport in it would come up in a list, and I can just quickly go through all that audio and go back and listen to it.
That would be really helpful we all like to, we don't like to, but the grid down scenario, how helpful would that be to be able to pull up what happened in the past?
And it's great too, because then you can go back and replay it. So if you've missed something very specific, you can go back and just double click that file and make sure you get that information you need to get.
That dreaded bathroom run.
or anything.
Yeah,
Somebody
you just
sneezes
have to
at the
have
wrong time.
power to the PC though, right? Power to the scanner, power to the PC to be able to have it running that long.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you were operating from a handheld, then is the background noise too much for you? I really want to turn that off.
Go ahead.
All right, hold on.
We got time.
Makes it authentic.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like,
We're in a real ham shack. What's going on? Turn it up.
I know. I'm like, it's got to be some kind of alert back there.
Yeah, it's actually a fire call for the county. And it's funny because it's a pager.
Yeah, I figured it because you were talking about that. So I figured it was. So I'm like, oh, there's something going on.
Yeah, so I'm testing it out for a department because I sell pagers, and I'm testing it out for the local department. I took it off the antenna, figuring that it wouldn't go off, and lo and behold, here we go, it goes off.
It works.
It works. Yes, it works. So, but yeah, going through the recording, it's again, you would need power, right? So again, if you're going to do something like this, then a laptop, right, with a handheld would be something that would get you through. Even if you have like a UPS setup, that would get you through as well. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about how to do this stuff as well on your podcast. Battery backup, solar power. There's enough to get you going, especially if you're operating on a laptop with just a handheld scanner would be good. And again, too, some scanners allow you to record internally. So if you have the Home Patrol, which you talked about before, or you have a radio like the TRX-1 and TRX-2 by Whistler, they have SD cards or micro SD cards built into the scanner.
Nice.
And you just press the record button, and it will record for you. And you can go back inside the scanner. You can go back and replay the audio as well. So you don't even need a computer.
Will they let you record the police while you're listening to the fire, or does it not split?
No. So you're now getting to the world of using multiple radios. Which
I'm getting greedy.
Well, I mean, I've also covered this as well on my podcast, and I don't have the number handy, but I also talked about why you'd want to have multiple scanners. And it's definitely something as you involve with a scanner radio user, it's definitely something that it's a skill that you should have, and especially if you're going to be doing something like this with prepping and being prepared. I definitely think having multiple scanners will help you out, because you can listen to two things at once, or you can keep something on the background, and like I usually try and do, and that will at least allow you to pick up on things. And I talked about that one. That's on session 79. Why do we use multiple scanners was the name of that one.
Nice.
So yep.
Yeah, because then you could be monitoring one signal and listening to another as well, because you never know where.
Right. And again, that helps out as well, where I keep one scanner just really, really uber local to me, like the 4 departments that cover, my backyard plus anything that my department touches, right? Just to hear what's going on. Then I have another scanner just set up for the county fire, and then another scanner set up for the county PD, another scanner set up for state PD, another scanner set up for whatever, X, Y, Z. And based on what's going on, you can kind of hear by the tone on the dispatcher or the speed of that transmission. You can pick up on when something is going to sound good, and you can just raise that one scanner and you can hold on it, and maybe you can put another scanner just dedicate to that one channel, and then go back to scan on that scanner. So you're not missing anything else. So there's a lot you can do, and there's actually commercial. They call them like news services that resell this kind of information to news agencies. And this is what they do. They sit at a desk and they have a dozen scanners in front of them, and they just wait for that call to come over, and they send it out to a paging system or a smartphone app. And again, they do a lot of community resourcing. Well, they have other users out there who listen, and they feed information into the group as well. So using a lot of scanners is definitely a very good skill to have, and it all starts with just one.
See,
So.
Chin, you have to multitask.
Man, we were
It's
talking
easy.
like just. So, hey, I got a squirrel moment. So a little off of what you were just saying, and I'm hitting you like punching you from the side. But so if you had like 2 or 3 scanners at your house, is there any way to feed that out? So like if you could pick it up on your cell phone or something?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I do.
Do you like personally do your own Broadcastify?
Yeah. In fact, if you use something like ProScan, you can actually set up an internal. So you don't need to go to Broadcastify. You can set up all internal to your computer,
Your own stuff,
and
yeah.
it's all in house. So you can do it that way. It actually works better if you have a second computer, and you can actually control the scanner remotely with ProScan.
Yeah.
You get a virtual display up on it. So if you had, say, 4 scanners, you could just run ProScan 4 times, set up 4 live feeds, and then on your remotes, your local side, you can run ProScan 4 more times, and then log into your 4 remote feeds, and then control the scanners like you're sitting in front of it. So that's a possibility as well. So again, that's great too if you have like a mountain type site, and you can put a computer and a radio up in a mountaintop site that will cover a whole thing. You can use a computer like on your in your basement and connect into that radio that's miles away, and listen to it as well.
Like how the relays work.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Definitely is.
Yeah. A lot
I
of
was
it.
just thinking of that. Wouldn't that be good to have like if you had your scanners at home, but if you were out working in the yard or something, at least you could hear it go off.
Yeah, well, again, that's why I got into the area of selling pagers, and again, we talk about this too. I like pagers because you can just have it set up. Like a good example is you can leave a pager just on a NOAA weather radio, and it's an overkill. I mean, you can go out and buy cheaper solutions to this, but you can program up a pager, a fire pager that's set up for the right frequency range, to work as a NOAA weather alert radio. And again, if you're in an area and you want to keep this on your belt, you can then have a portable radio with you that would alert you if there's an emergency.
Yeah.
Over in Europe, they use, I believe it's 1050 hertz. I think is the key on the radio, something like that. But I think I'm talking out of turn on this one. But I tried to promote something like this on my local areas and races group. I was like, let's just have a tone that goes out over the repeater, and we just give everybody, you can get cheap pagers, and when that tone goes out over the repeater, the pagers operate, and it's an alert that says, hey, guys, get ready, get to your radio, and the pagers are quiet when there's no alert. But when something happens and it hits the fan and you have to deploy the users, then boom, it's perfect, and it would record it so we can come back, and it's got the flashing lights on it. So there's multiple ways, like I said, there's multiple ways here to go through it. Again, we are going way down the rabbit hole.
That's an awesome idea, though. Holy smokes!
Yeah, it's what happens when you overthink things.
You can just mobilize your whole community emergency response team that way. Just
I mean, you could do it with FRS, right? You could set that up that way. You could do it over GMRS. You can do it again. There's different ways.
You could even do that just with your survival group, like with your personal group. And then you can notify everybody in your group without having to worry about making one phone call.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned phone chains, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. As long as the radio, like they always say, when everything else fails is amateur radio, but amateur radio is amateur radio, but there's other radio services out there that can fill that gap if you don't want to, get your amateur radio license.
So the coverage for pagers, is there good coverage across the nation, or is that still available?
Yeah, actually there is. A lot of fire departments use pagers. Where I am, most of them, when I talk pagers, they're talking about radio receivers that they wear that will activate on the two tones that go out over the air. So it's more of a voice system. It's an extension of a radio. But the old, doctors and drug dealers type of pagers,
Yeah.
those are still, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much, I don't even think drug dealers use them anymore, but doctors still are. And hospital techs are using pagers, and even fire departments are using the old school POC, SAG, and Flex pagers because they're more reliable in certain areas where, cell phones are limited. So, I mean, I have a customer of mine, it's OEM out in Colorado, and they keep buying the old school POC, SAG pagers from me because they keep deploying them out. So there's definitely still a market for these things. And, you can build your own POC, SAG paging network, but as far as using it, I think the easiest way to do it for your situation, for a community, resource group or a community, prepper group for response group, voice paging, I think is the best way, where you just have an A/B tone that goes out over the air, it activates the pager, and then your voice goes out over the pager, and you can say, hey, we have an emergency on XYZ, groups ABC, prepare to deploy or something like that, and then would be a great way to get a hold of everybody.
Yeah, but
again,
Sarah, like you guys up at the mountain, if the neighborhood all had pagers, so you could say the fire just came into my backyard or something, right? Or just
and again too, not to get on the paging thing, but to bring it back into scanning, your scanner can substitute as a pager if you set it up in fire tone out mode. So again, it's how crazy do you want to be? Now again too, when you have it in fire tone out mode, you can't use the scanner for anything else. So
Okay, got you.
So it's definitely crazy.
Yeah. Wow. All righty.
all right.
Yeah.
So I guess you guys.
No wonder.
You guys also want to talk about close call mode. I know, Chin, when we talked earlier, that you wanted to touch on that. So close call mode can be a lifesaver too. And I'm saying that it could actually physically save a life. It just can be, a blessing. So if you don't know what's in your neck of the woods, or you don't know what's going on, and you see a lot of people around you using two-way radios, and you want to kind of eavesdrop in or know what's going on, Uniden calls it close call. Whistler and Radio Shack, they call it signal stalker. Basically what happens is you can put your scanner in a particular mode where it's going to find the strongest signal in your area and lock in on it, and then play that signal over your scanner. So it's a really great way of finding out, you have a bunch of users in an area, and you'd be able to listen to them. So an example of how I use it locally myself is I live off the parkway. So if I see a traffic helicopter up in the air, I can do one of two things. I can go into my traffic bank or my news bank and listen for them, or I can hit close call because I can physically see that helicopter. As soon as I key up with an update, boom, it comes to my scanner. I don't have to hunt for them. Another good example of using close call was we have the Marines come in. They come in for Fleet Week, usually Memorial Day weekend, and they do a demo exercise. So they change frequencies every year, but I know where they are because as they're hovering overhead, just out of view and just out of sound, I'll actually hear them queue up and get ready to come in. So when they come in over your head, I already know where they're coming from. So I can use close call to find them that way as well. So.
Actually, we had a house fire about a block away, and I used that, and I could listen to the fire department. Yep. And that's how I found it, because I didn't know, that was back when I first got it, and I still don't know. But I knew about that function on my scanner, and I hit it, and I could pick in. You could hear them coming out to put more oxygen in my tank or whatever. It was very interesting.
So basically, any moron can do that one.
Yeah, but
wait.
Problem is sometimes though you get stuck in close call mode because they made it too easy to get into it sometimes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a lot of times people will call me up and hey, I'm trying to listen to this, but I keep getting FM radio on here. I keep getting this, and close call has been enabled and they haven't been able to to turn it off. So just be sure that this is one of these things that you have practice using, especially if don't wait until the last minute to learn how to do something like this. You don't want to figure out how to get yourself out of it as well. So,
all righty.
So I know.
So, but I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to let this interview run overtime because, gosh, so much great information for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll touch on two more things if you want, so that we can wrap it up real easy and answer a couple more questions really quick.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions people ask me too is about SDR radio, software defined radio. That's like the key talking point a lot of people have lately. When just getting into scanning, I think getting the scanner hardware is probably easier than setting up a SDR. I mean, you might be intrigued by the SDR price point, but they are a little bit complicated to set up. If you don't know what you're doing, you can be lost on it really fast. And I've actually put together training courses on how to set up SDR. I did a live session that went over about 5 weeks. I did an hour a night for 5 weeks. And that was pretty well received. And I'm actually thinking about restarting that again the next month. So again, if you jump on my mailing list, if I do restart that, it was pretty cheap. It was about $50, and you got me for 5 weeks. So it's $10 a week. I mean, you're going to get to learn how to use an SDR and how to turn a $25 dongle or USB stick into a $600 radio. So the investment really, I mean, it is there. But if you don't know what you're doing, I think it's a bad idea to get started with SDR, even though you can be, intrigued by the price. If I don't do the live sessions, I do have on-demand sessions upcoming, so I'm working on those as well. So just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's the best solution. Again, like Chinese radios, we could talk a whole nother hour on Chinese radios. Just because it's $25.
Don't talk bad about Baofeng. You're going to get a lot of email.
Yeah, I did a whole podcast on it, so I'll just leave it for that. So that's in there as well. And we'll just leave it at that. If you want to go through my archives, I called the cheap Chinese radios and the pros and cons, and let's just say it was heavily weighed on one side of the other. And then I also want to give you like a real life example as to what happened here, because we had Superstorm Sandy roll through here a couple of years back, and it's been a while actually, and it completely leveled Long Beach, Long Island. They actually brought in FEMA, the National Guard, the whole deal. I mean, they had helicopters, the black helicopters you never want to see, flying in formation over my house. My parents lost half the house, and they got lucky compared to a coworker of mine who was actually in his house and was watching the water level rise up to his chest while he was on the ground floor. And thank God he had built a second floor in his house, so he was able to retreat up to there. So again, that's a nightmare scenario. Listening to my scanner at that time, I'm listening to amateur radio, right? And that's where most of the activity was while the storm rolled through. I'm about 10 miles away, and we didn't even lose anything out here. We didn't even lose power. But again, like I said, my parents lost half their house. My uncle lost everything in his basement. People in Long Beach lost entire homes and neighborhoods. There was actually a neighborhood in Queens that not only had to deal with flooding, but actually wiped out an entire neighborhood due to a fire that was out of control. Neighborhood completely gone. So these things do happen, and it's realistic. After everything went through, I kind of was working from home. I said, you know what? I know the National Guard's in town. I scrambled last minute, not prepared. I loaded in the national frequencies, FEMA, Red Cross, right? All the groups that you would never want to have to program into your scanner. I programmed into my scanner, and they were active. They were beyond active. And listening to all these frequencies, and you can tell out-of-towners, people with accents that do not belong on Long Island, were relaying radio messages. And it was a very well-orchestrated military style, because it was the military at that point, communications going through. And again, I second-guessed putting in my scanner because I'm like, I'm never going to need this. But now every scanner I have has these national frequencies in there with the hopes that I will never, ever need to listen to them again. But I learned my lesson. And again, it's prepare for this kind of stuff. And, thankfully I was in a situation where I could have put it in after the fact. But again, it was nice to know they're bringing in supplies from XYZ, or we're sending resources out to this street today, or we're combing this neighborhood. And those were the kinds of traffic information that was going out for weeks after Superstorm Sandy rolled through and crushed this neighborhood.
And that kind of information is golden.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And to prove the point too, they closed out the shelters almost that night because depending where you were on Long Island, it was basically a nothing storm or total disaster. So.
Yeah, that's a lot of times how the wildfires are exactly the same. I mean, it's either you're or you didn't get it. They saved your house. It went around you for some reason. So, yeah, it would not be a bad thing to have in my area. That's for sure.
Right. Yep, definitely.
Well, Phil, you have filled our minds up with a ton of information all at once. So it's just like, boom, download. So I want people to go check out your that sheet that you have put together for us, the 5 things that you need to know before buying your first scanner radio. Sounds like that's a great place to start, and then just kind of go for there. And we're going to have the link on my website, but it's also on Phil's website at thescannerschool.com.
It's actually just scannerschool.com. There's no the in there.
Oh, okay. No the.
Yep.
Just
No the.
Yeah, I just looked up
Okay.
Scanner School and boom, it popped right up. So
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll put it, I'll make a page just up for your audience. So it'll be scannerschool.com/changing earth. And what I'll do in there is just for your audience is I'll put a link to that, the 5 things you need to know before buying your next scanner radio. And also I'll put a link to a podcast I just did, which is session 83, which is how to buy the correct scanner for your area. Now, again, it's not going to be the scanner models because I want to kind of make this so that it would be an evergreen type of podcast, but it's just how to find the correct type of scanner you need. So do you need to buy one that's DMR? Do you need to buy one that's NXDN or P25, which is straight analog? So that will just help you at least navigate the waters to know what type of scanner that you need to buy.
I think it's a great idea, like to be able to have that initial download of here's all the stuff you need to start out, and then go from there. Learn how to update it on your own later.
Right. And again, too, I mean, I am definitely here to help. And what I do once a month on my own podcast, too, is I have a segment called Ask Scanner School where people can call in ahead of time and can leave me a voicemail, and I'll answer their questions they may have. So that's a good way if somebody listens to this and they have a ton of questions, they can start asking those, and I'll answer them on my podcast. Also, I will take email, but to be honest with you, I'm promoting the using of a speak pipe and a voicemail, and I usually pick one person per month that wins a free consulting call with me as well. So if you do have any questions, I do have that lifeline out there as well.
Beautiful. What a great resource, man. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Really, really appreciate it. It's just that, like I said, this is just scratching the surface. We're going to have you
Barely.
back. Delve. Yeah.
This
really,
is barely just scratching the surface.
Yeah. So I think we could pick one of the topics and just do another hour on getting in a little deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm up to 86 right now on my podcast, and I still have a long list of topics I need to discuss. So yeah, there's a lot.
All righty.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. I'm more than happy to come back anytime you need me.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, we need to spend some time on your website as well, because it's got full of all kinds of good stuff between blogs and podcasts and that resource page. Good stuff, Phil.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up there. A lot of information. I've got great links for you guys over on the Survival Guide, so head on over there, check it out. Thanks to everybody for tuning up and listening, and thank you for supporting the show.
Thank you for joining Sara and Chen for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, Battle for the South, Dark Days in Denver, and The Endless Night at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love the Changing Earth series and podcast, become a supporter while you're there. Then head over to iTunes or Amazon and let everyone know by leaving a review.